We are following a developing story. The Justice Department confirms a massive FBI operation is underway, resulting in the capture of several high-profile targets.
At 11:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the FBI director stands before a wall of cameras and delivers 6 words that will shatter the illusion of safety in the American heartland. Minnesota was not just infiltrated, it was sold. The numbers that follow are catastrophic. Over 2.1 million fentanyl pills seized in a single coordinated strike. 14 tons of narcotics pulled from warehouses across the Minneapolis-St. Paul corridor. $87 million in laundered cash traced through nonprofit foundations that never helped a single refugee. And at the center of it all, 2 names that were supposed to represent public trust: Governor Marcus Henning and Minneapolis Mayor Rashid Osman, both now subjects of the largest federal corruption investigation in Minnesota history. This is not a story about a drug cartel slipping through the cracks. This is a story about politicians who built the cracks themselves, paved them, and charged the cartel a toll to drive through. And what you are about to hear gets worse with every line. 4:32 a.m., Cedar Riverside neighborhood, Minneapolis. The sky is ink black. Fog rolls off the Mississippi River and clings to the street like a warning. The city is silent except for the low hum of unmarked black SUVs converging from 4 directions. FBI, DIA, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, over 300 federal agents in tactical gear, night vision locked, radio silent. They are not here to investigate. They are here to dismantle. The target list is surgical. A halal grocery store on the corner of 7th Street that moves more fentanyl than food. A sprawling warehouse in the North Loop registered under a shell charity called New Horizons Relief Fund. A luxury townhouse in Edina owned by a so-called community organizer who has never organized anything except shipments. And deep beneath a shuttered restaurant in South Minneapolis, a tunnel system that runs 3 blocks underground, wide enough to drive a van through, connecting stash houses to distribution hubs without ever touching daylight. At exactly 4:33 a.m., every door is breached at once. Flashbangs shatter the silence. SWAT teams pour in like a black flood. Inside the warehouse, agents find rows of industrial shrink-wrap machines still warm, pallets stacked 8 feet high with vacuum-sealed bricks of methamphetamine, and metal crates filled with fentanyl pills stamped with cartel logos that trace directly back to Sinaloa suppliers. One agent pops the lid on a duffel bag near the loading dock. It is stuffed with cash bundled in $10,000 stacks, still smelling like diesel and fear. But it is what they find in the back office that changes everything. A steel, reinforced server closet. 3 encrypted hard drives. And a single laptop left open, still logged in, showing a digital ledger with over 400 wire transfers. Each one coded. Each one routed through a web of ghost companies with names like Midwest Prosperity Solutions and Unity Development Partners. And every single transaction linked back to 2 authorization codes. One belongs to a deputy in the governor's office, the other belongs to the mayor himself. By sunrise, the FBI Cyber Forensics Unit in St. Paul is already inside the system. Analysts stare at the network diagram projected across the wall like a digital spiderweb. They call it Operation Crossroads. And it is not just big, it is architecturally precise. Shell companies in Delaware, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Dubai, fake nonprofits that received millions in federal refugee resettlement grants and funneled it straight into cartel logistics, restaurant chains that existed only on paper, trucking firms with no trucks but perfect tax records, and at the center of the web, 2 faces. Governor Marcus Henning, a man who campaigned on immigration compassion and community empowerment, and Mayor Rashid Osman, a rising political star who turned Minneapolis into what federal prosecutors are now calling a fentanyl fortress. Their encrypted communications show coordination at the command level. Border entry schedules. ICE raid warnings sent 48 hours in advance. Shipping routes disguised as humanitarian aid convoys. They did not just look the other way, they drew the map. One analyst leans back from her screen and says it out loud. This is not corruption. This is command-level collusion. And the operation has only just begun. 6:11 a.m., Joint Operations Command Center, Federal Building, downtown Minneapolis. A massive digital map glows on the main screen. Across the Twin Cities metro area, 57 red markers pulse in real time. Each one represents a cartel-linked location. Stash houses in Burnsville, drug packaging facilities in Brooklyn Park, human trafficking transit sites in St. Cloud, migrant smuggling safe houses in Mankato, and luxury properties in Minnetonka and Wayzata, where cartel money was laundered through real estate development deals approved personally by the mayor's office. The mission brief is direct. Over 1,000 federal agents, 42 SWAT teams, Black Hawk helicopters circling the airspace, ICE tactical units positioned at interstate checkpoints, U.S. Marshals coordinating arrest warrants for 34 public officials, including 6 state legislators, 2 county judges, and 11 officers from the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct. At 6:45 a.m., the raids begin. In Bloomington, DEA agents storm a suburban home and find a fentanyl superlab in the basement capable of pressing 50,000 pills per day. In Shakopee, ICE teams intercept a convoy of refrigerated trucks labeled as frozen halal meat. Inside, they discover 200 kilos of cocaine packed in false compartments and 11 undocumented migrants locked in the rear cargo hold, smuggled in as human cargo for cartel debt work. In Edina, FBI agents enter a mansion registered to a nonprofit director and seize $4.3 million in cash stored in hidden floor safes, along with cartel ledgers listing every corrupt official on payroll. And beneath a strip mall in South Minneapolis, agents descend into the tunnel system. It is not a makeshift dig. It is engineered. Concrete walls, LED lighting, ventilation shafts, a logistical masterpiece that allowed the syndicate to move narcotics and people across the city without ever surfacing. One ICE agent radios back to command. This is not a drug tunnel. This is infrastructure. By noon, the numbers are staggering. Over 14 tons of narcotics seized, 2.1 million fentanyl pills, 900 illegal firearms, 87 vehicles used for smuggling, and $91 million in cash and assets frozen across 23 bank accounts. The underworld took more damage in 6 hours than it had in the last 6 years. But the real shock comes when investigators start reviewing the seized communication logs. They find patrol schedules from the Minneapolis Police Department sent directly to cartel coordinators. They find internal emails from the mayor's chief of staff instructing city planners to fast-track zoning permits for warehouses later used as drug fortresses. They find border crossing data shared by a senior ICE officer who received $340,000 in cryptocurrency payments from a shell company tied to the syndicate. One federal prosecutor reviewing the files says it plainly. They were not just compromised. They were running a parallel system. Honest officers inside MPD are devastated. Veterans with 20 years on the force who never knew their own colleagues were feeding raid intel to the enemy. One sergeant breaks down in an interview room and says, "I thought I was protecting my city. Turns out half my unit was protecting the cartel." Over the next 72 hours, 19 officers are arrested. A deputy police chief is taken into custody at his home in front of his family. A county judge who dismissed over 60 drug trafficking cases in 2 years is charged with obstruction and conspiracy. The badge will be rebuilt. But first, it has to be burned clean. Now zoom out. Because what federal investigators discover next reveals that Minnesota was never the endpoint, it was the distribution center. Using encrypted shipping software and falsified manifests, the syndicate moved fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin across the entire Midwest. Trucking routes ran through Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, disguised as agricultural freight or charitable donations. Weigh stations were mysteriously offline during convoy windows. State troopers in 3 states received anonymous cash drops to ignore certain plates, and it all flowed through Minneapolis. Governor Henning's office had approved over $120 million in emergency grants for migrant services and infrastructure development. Almost none of it went to actual services. Instead, it funded cartel logistics, warehouse leases, tunnel construction, encrypted communication systems, even a private security firm staffed with cartel enforcers who operated under the cover of community safety patrols. Federal agents uncover one final file buried deep in the server network. It is labeled Phase 3 Expansion. The plan is chilling. By 2027, the syndicate intended to consolidate full control over Minnesota's legislative funding channels, install cartel-friendly judges in federal district courts, and establish Minneapolis as the permanent Midwest headquarters for fentanyl distribution into every major American city from Chicago to Detroit to Cleveland. This was not infiltration. This was colonization. The system was not broken by the cartel. It was redesigned for the cartel. One FBI official puts it this way: they were not trying to hide in the shadows. They were trying to become the government. So here is what this story really means. Power does not always come with violence. Sometimes it comes with speeches about compassion, diversity, and second chances. Sometimes it hides behind nonprofit logos and political endorsements. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not the one breaking down your door, it is the one holding the keys. Minnesota lost more lives to fentanyl in the last 3 years than it did in every violent crime category combined. Families destroyed. Neighborhoods gutted. Young people dead in their 20s from pills that looked like prescription medication but were pressed with poison in a basement lab run by a cartel that had a politician on speed dial. This story is not just about one state. It is a warning. When ambition meets silence, when power brokers value money over lives, when the people who swear to protect you sell you out instead, this is what happens. A fentanyl fortress rises in the Heartland. A drug empire grows in plain sight. And by the time you realize it, the system is already theirs. Governor Marcus Henning and Mayor Rashid Osman are now facing over 200 combined federal charges, including racketeering, money laundering, narcotics trafficking conspiracy, human trafficking facilitation, and obstruction of justice. If convicted, they will never see freedom again. But the damage they enabled will take a generation to repair. If you are still watching this, tap the like button so more people see what really happens when corruption is left unchecked. Drop a comment with the word expose if you want stories like this dragged into the light where they belong. Share this with someone who still thinks this could never happen in their state. Because it can. It did. And it will again unless we pay attention.